You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
It's back to you.
Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
even
entire
today.
meeting, you said thank you.
Even today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October.
So that happened on Friday. I'm sure you're all aware of that. There's been a ton of fallout. We're gonna be breaking it all down on the show today. But I was busy traveling, and so I sort of caught up with this after the fact and had to watch it. And I just want to say that there's a lot going on a day-to-day basis that makes me worried for our country, scared for our future. But in terms of just sheer international embarrassment, it's tough to match that. Donald Trump whining, just why don't you say nice things? Thank me for this. You're not thankful. And JD Vance acting like, I don't like, in A Christmas Story, there's like the big redhead bully, and then there's a tiny little toady. JD Vance has such tiny little toady energy. Make that a sweatshirt. Like, yeah, did you say thank you? And Volodymyr Zelensky's like, yeah, many times. Actually, I'm saying it right now. And he's like, well, yeah, but you should have said it more. That was the line I was told to say during this ambush. And look, this is deeply serious. The fate of a nation could rest on this. The fate of greater Europe could rest on whether Donald Trump is able to get past his hurt fifis and maintain this alliance, but it's also just so embarrassing. And I'm gonna give you more of the exchange, how we got to that point, but I just wanna be very clear to any conservatives watching this. When you are told, as you always have been and always will be, when a woman runs for president that we can't have that, they're so emotional. Oh man, they'll just be like, oh God, no logic, no rationale. That's what Republicans say. And then you see Donald Trump, who's just he's so mad at this guy for not being nice to him. And he's lashing out and just talking over him. And it's just so deeply embarrassing. Jesus Christ. But that said, there was more to the interaction. So let's see that.
Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems? What, bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean. And don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war,
you're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards.
Mr. President.
Jesus. So Zelensky rightly points out that, yeah, it's easy for us to not be concerned about what Russia is doing because we haven't been invaded by them yet. And so he points that out. And he talks about how, allowing Russia to conquer Ukraine, which is obviously what Donald Trump and JD Vance are perfectly happy to see happen, eventually could have consequences for us. And Donald Trump, big strong man, says, no, we're gonna feel very good and very strong. And God help America if we experience any actual crises with Donald Trump in charge, because he's not capable of dealing with a conversation with an ally, let alone a serious crisis. And of course, we already know that from the pandemic. He folded, and many, many people died as a result of that. And yeah, just like JD Vance, did you not have problems in this war? Dude, Ukraine was invaded by Russia. like one of the biggest, strongest militaries in the world. And for 3 years, they've been desperately trying to hold on as they've been attacked and bombed and cruise missiles and war crimes against their people and mass movements of their people out of the territory. And you're like, what, you haven't been smooth enough in your desperate fight to maintain your culture and your government? JD Vance was asked, have you been to Ukraine? He said, I've seen the stories. My God, you little weenie. Can you imagine, JR, and I'm gonna toss it to you for commentary. Can you imagine if it was JD Vance or Trump in Zelensky's place? What would have happened to Ukraine 3 days into that conflict, let alone 3 years? Donald Trump can't take 1 weekend off of golfing, and he's gonna criticize Zelensky, who somehow managed to survive despite endless attempts on his life. He's been desperately trying to maintain the lives of his people. To see these two little just recipients of endless wealthy largesse throughout their life. JD Vance plucked out after college and lifted up to have a career made for himself. Donald Trump born into wealth. And to hear them criticizing him is just so beneath even the minimal standards that I think we should have had for them at this point. It is just so embarrassing, and every MAGA person should be embarrassed for how Donald Trump made them and their movement look in this.
This is what's crazy. Many aren't supporting this. Many are embarrassed by this. We saw some of the responses. Again, I'm not sure if I've said this enough times. Don't go on Twitter, because everything on Twitter is fake. And that's not the fake news thing. The point is there's so much propaganda flowing through Twitter that any responses you may see, the comment sections that come from any post about anything, eventually go back to praising Donald Trump and Elon Musk, no matter what. It always gets off the subject and the point. So don't think that MAGA folks are represented necessarily on Twitter. Many are, we'll keep it on that. Many are, but they're conditioned that way from the way that this site was put together to make sure that propaganda flows, so that what's right in front of them is not reality. So yes, it's them, but it's them being conditioned the way that they were the entire time. The reasons why they think January 6th was a beautiful, glorious day. The reasons why they think the election in 2020 was actually won by Donald Trump. It's constant propaganda, and it's not even put together that well, but they buy it so hook, line, and sinker, it becomes their identity. So just to get that out of the way, there's many people who aren't on board with what Trump and Vance did here, as you called it, an ambush. The whole plan was to make sure that Volodymyr Zelensky looks like what Vladimir Putin is. So it's the flip reality on its head. It's what we've done since this guy got into office. Remember Kellyanne Conway and the alternative facts? We're still living in those alternative facts era. Everything that's said is a lie. They unleashed all of their MAGA representatives on Sunday shows. Marco Rubio went on, Tulsi Gabbard went on. There was another senator who's a no-name guy who went on, decided to talk about Turner. Representative Turner went on Face the Nation, talking about all these same things, but spinning it in a way to make sure that the driving factor from their point of view is, can you believe he came into the Oval Office and disrespected us? You know what he wants? He wants security guarantees. While we're asking him for $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals so we can cover for all the blunders and economic failures that Donald Trump is about to unleash on the country through his tariffs and his trading wars and is trying to trigger conflicts across the world. You're supposed to cover for that because that's what's gonna make America great again. This is the plan. And part of that is to cede the territory back to Vladimir Putin. And to one last thing, make sure you don't offend Putin or else he won't come to the table. This is the United States of America. This Donald Trump is your champion, the one who campaigned and said that as soon as I get to the table, I'm gonna talk to Zelensky, he's gonna listen to me. I'm gonna talk to Putin, he's gonna listen to me. Now you're not talking to anybody because neither one of them is listening to you. You're listening to one and you're repeating everything that he's saying.
It's just, look, I think, I don't know how you get into a position in life where you watch that. Look, this is the fundamental problem in our culture, is American men, their heads are so twisted in being able to determine what is strong and what is not, that you could watch him, you'll notice the body language. He doesn't even look him in the eyes. He can't even look him in the eyes as he's, you're in no position to dictate. It's just such pathetic, fake, strong nonsense. And they love it, they eat it up regardless. And you know who eats it up even more? Russia. Russia obviously loves it. They must have been so shocked because they already had Donald Trump, who's supposed to be one of the best negotiators in the world, go into this thing saying, I'm gonna give you everything you want right off the bat, before we even start the actual negotiations. You're definitely gonna take a bunch of the territory of Ukraine immediately, and in a year or two, because we're not gonna allow them to join a defensive alliance, we're not getting aid, whatever, then you'll finish conquering them. So don't worry, you're gonna conquer them sooner or later. And now I'm gonna attack him. I'm gonna say that he started the war. I'm gonna call him a dictator. I'm never gonna even raise my voice at Vladimir Putin, and we'll get into more of that. And so of course, Russia is thrilled at this. And one of the spokespeople for the Kremlin said that the United States is, quote, rapidly changing foreign policy to largely coincide with their vision. Yep, Foreign Minister of Russia said Trump has common sense. Spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry said after the Oval Office meeting that it was a miracle of restraint that Trump and Vance didn't hit Zelensky. I'm sure MAGA would have loved that if they had just started beating him. I don't know what damage it would have done with Donald Trump's tiny hands and JD Vance, like, look at him. I don't think he could. But anyway, they're obviously very happy. Former Russian president referred to Zelensky as a insolent pig that finally got a proper slap down. And it's not just the words and the framing that they're getting more than that. US is halting their offensive cyber operations against Moscow. Obviously, why would we fight them? Why we like them. They're our buddies. They're an authoritarian regime. Obviously, they're the good ones. A democracy under siege, they're the bad guys. They should be slandered. They should be left to potentially be conquered. And so that's a lot of fun. When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?